the woman who stepped off the stagecoach in Naco, Arizona Territory, that blazing afternoon in July of 1882, stood a full 6 feet tall in her worn traveling boots, and the driver had to reach up to hand her down her carpetbag. Sophia Ashford surveyed the dusty main street with eyes the color of summer sky, her shoulders squared beneath her simple cotton dress, aware that every person within sight had stopped to stare at her imposing frame and the way she lifted her heavy trunk as though it weighed no more than a loaf of bread. She had grown accustomed to the stares over her 23 years. Back in Philadelphia, the matchmakers had clucked their tongues and shaken their heads, insisting that no respectable gentleman wanted a wife who could look him straight in the eye, or who possessed the physical strength of a dockworker. Her mother had despaired, arranging introduction after introduction with increasingly nervous young men who would smile tightly and make polite conversation before finding reasons to take their leave. The final straw had come when Robert Henderson, a banker's son who barely reached her chin, had proposed marriage with the stipulation that she never wear anything but flat slippers and that she learn to cultivate a more delicate constitution. Sophia had declined and booked passage west within the week. Her Aunt Margaret lived somewhere in this territory, running a boarding house in Naco, and had written that there was always room for family and plenty of work for those willing to do it. The letters had painted a picture of a rough but honest town near the Mexican border, where copper mines and cattle ranches provided employment, and where people were judged more by their capabilities than their conformity to Eastern social standards. The heat pressed down like a physical weight as Sophia made her way along the wooden sidewalk, her trunk balanced on one shoulder. Men in dusty work clothes and broad-brimmed hats moved aside, some with appreciation in their eyes, others with uncertainty. She ignored them all, focused on finding her aunt's establishment. Miss Ashford. Sophia turned to see a plump woman in her 50s, gray hair pinned neatly beneath a practical bonnet, hurrying toward her with arms outstretched. Aunt Margaret. Sophia set down her trunk and embraced the older woman, feeling the familiar warmth of family. Lord have mercy, child, you have grown even taller, and look at you, carrying that trunk like it is nothing. Come along, the boarding house is just up this way. We will get you settled and fed, and then you can tell me everything about your journey. The boarding house stood 2 stories tall, whitewashed wood gleaming in the afternoon sun. Inside, the rooms were clean and simply furnished, with windows that caught the cross breeze. Margaret showed Sophia to a small but comfortable room on the 2nd floor overlooking the street. I have 8 other boarders at present, Margaret explained, pouring water from a pitcher into a basin. Mostly miners and ranch hands. They are good men, respectful, and they pay on time. I serve breakfast and supper, and I expect help with the cooking and cleaning. The work is hard, but it is honest. I am not afraid of hard work, Sophia assured her, washing the dust from her face and hands. Over the next few weeks, Sophia settled into the rhythm of life in Naco. She rose before dawn to help Margaret prepare breakfast for the boarders, spending hours kneading bread dough and frying eggs and bacon over the massive cast-iron stove. She hauled water, beat rugs, scrubbed floors, and discovered that her strength, rather than being a liability, made her invaluable. When a section of fence behind the boarding house collapsed during a summer storm, Sophia repaired it herself, driving posts into the hard-packed earth with powerful swings of a sledgehammer while Margaret's boarders watched in amazement. The mining office hired her twice to help move heavy equipment when their regular workers fell ill. The general store owner, a kindly man named Patterson, paid her to unload freight wagons. Word spread quickly through the small town about Margaret's unusually capable niece, And while some of the more genteel townswomen whispered behind their fans, most folks in Naco appreciated someone who could pull their own weight. Still, when it came to courtship, Sophia found herself facing familiar disappointments. A young deputy named William tried calling on her, bringing wildflowers and stammering compliments, but when she accidentally bumped the porch railing and he rushed to steady it thinking she might fall, only to find she had already braced the entire structure with one hand, he made his excuses and never returned. A traveling salesman attempted to impress her with tales of his adventures, but when she helped him load his wagon with cases of goods, lifting crates he could barely drag, his ardor cooled considerably. "They want porcelain dolls," Sophia said one evening as she helped Margaret shell peas for supper. "They want women who swoon and need constant assistance. I am not built for swooning." Margaret patted her hand. "The right man will appreciate exactly what you are, dear. He just has not arrived yet." That prediction came true on an August morning when a tall man in dusty work clothes strode into the general store, while Sophia was helping Mr. Patterson inventory his stock room. She was standing on a ladder, passing down heavy boxes of canned goods, when she heard raised voices from the front of the store. "I ordered 300 feet of barbed wire 4 weeks ago, Patterson. My cattle are wandering onto my neighbor's property, and I am losing animals through the gaps in my fencing. Where is the wire?" The voice was deep and carried the kind of authority that came from someone accustomed to solving problems rather than complaining about them. Sophia climbed down from the ladder and walked to the doorway to see who was speaking. The man stood well over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that strained the seams of his shirt and hands that looked like they could break horseshoes. His face was weathered from years under the desert sun, with strong features and dark eyes that missed nothing. He wore his brown hair longer than fashionable, brushing the collar of his shirt, and his jaw was set in a line that suggested he was not a man easily deterred. "Mr. Taylor, I apologize, but the freight wagon broke an axle 20 miles out," Patterson was explaining, wringing his hands. "The driver sent word that he would not make it here until next week at the earliest." "Next week? My herd cannot wait until next week. I will ride out and get the wire myself." "But sir, the crates are terribly heavy and there are 6 of them. You would need help loading them, and the driver is alone out there with a broken wagon." The tall man, this Mr. Taylor, looked around the store with visible frustration. His gaze passed over Sophia, then snapped back, taking in her height and the way she stood with easy confidence. "Can you spare this young woman for a day?" he asked Patterson bluntly. "I will pay for her time and bring her back safely." Sophia spoke before Patterson could answer. "I can speak for myself, sir. What exactly would this job entail?" His eyes met hers, and for the first time since arriving in Arizona territory, Sophia found herself looking at a man without having to tilt her head down. They stood nearly eye to eye, and something in his direct gaze made her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with intimidation. "I need to ride out to a stranded freight wagon, load 6 crates of barbed wire onto my wagon, and bring them back to my ranch. The work is heavy and the day will be long and hot, but I will pay $3 for your trouble and provide meals." $3 was more than she usually made in a week. More than that, though, there was something compelling about this man's straightforward manner. He had not looked at her with pity or uncertainty. He had simply assessed what he needed and asked for her help. "I accept," she said. "Sophia, are you certain?" Patterson asked nervously. "You do not know this gentleman." "I know him," Margaret's voice came from behind Sophia. She had come to the store to buy flour and had apparently heard the exchange. "Isaiah Taylor runs the 3 Bar Ranch north of town. He is a hard man but an honest one," She will be safe enough." Isaiah nodded respectfully to Margaret. "I give you my word, madam. Your niece will come to no harm in my care." Within the hour, Sophia found herself sitting on the bench seat of a sturdy wagon, rolling north out of Naco beside Isaiah Taylor. The morning sun climbed higher, promising another scorching day, but the movement of the wagon created a slight breeze that made the heat bearable. For the first mile, they rode in silence. Sophia studied the landscape, the way the desert stretched out in shades of tan and gold, studded with mesquite and sage. Mountains rose in the distance, purple and hazy in the morning light. She had never seen country so open, so vast, and something in her responded to all that space. "You are Margaret's niece from back east," Isaiah said finally. It was not quite a question. "From Philadelphia. I arrived about 6 weeks ago." "What brought you west?" Sophia considered how much to reveal. There was something about this man's calm presence that invited honesty. "I did not fit there. The society, the expectations, the way women are supposed to be. I am not built for parlor games and delicate sensibilities." He glanced at her, and the corner of his mouth twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "No, I imagine you are not." "And you?" she asked. "Have you always been in Arizona?" "I came here 8 years ago after my father died. I was 23 and had a small inheritance. I bought land when it was cheap and built the ranch from nothing. It has been hard work, but it is mine, every acre of it." "You run it alone?" "I have 2 ranch hands who help with the cattle and horses. But yes, mostly alone. I prefer it that way. Most people talk too much and say too little." Sophia found herself smiling. "That is possibly the most honest thing anyone has ever said to me." This time Isaiah definitely smiled, a transformation that softened his weathered features and reached his eyes. "I have little patience for social niceties. Life is too short to spend it pretending." They found the stranded freight wagon around midday, listing to one side with a broken front axle. The driver, a grizzled man named Hank, looked immensely relieved to see them. "Mr. Taylor, I was hoping someone would come. I sent my boy into town 3 days ago, but I was worried the message would not reach you in time." "We are here now," Isaiah said, climbing down from the wagon. "Let us get these crates loaded and leave you to your repairs. Do you have what you need to fix the axle?" "Yes, sir. I just need time to work on it without worrying about your goods sitting out here." The crates of barbed wire were indeed heavy, roughly 150 pounds each. Isaiah grabbed one end of the first crate while Hank took the other, and they wrestled it toward Isaiah's wagon with visible effort. Sophia watched them struggle for a moment, then moved to help. "Let me take an end," she said. Hank stepped aside gratefully, and Sophia gripped the rough wood. Together, she and Isaiah lifted the crate into the wagon bed with considerably less difficulty than Hank and Isaiah had managed. They worked in smooth coordination, and when they set the crate down, Isaiah studied her with open curiosity. "You are strong," he said. "Yes." "That does not bother you, should it?" Most women I have known would apologize for it, or try to hide it. Sophia met his gaze squarely. "I spent years apologizing for things I cannot change. I am finished with that." Something shifted in Isaiah's expression, a kind of recognition that made Sophia's breath catch. Without another word, they turned back to the remaining crates. They fell into an easy rhythm, lifting and carrying in unison, their movements coordinated as though they had worked together for years rather than hours. When they finished loading all 6 crates, Hank shook his head in wonder. "I have never seen the like," he said. "You two work as smooth as a matched team of horses." Isaiah offered Sophia a canteen of water, and she drank gratefully, aware that he was watching her with an intensity she had never experienced before. not the nervous fascination of smaller men intimidated by her size, and not the dismissive glances of those who saw her as somehow unfeminine. This was something different, something that made her skin warm in a way that had nothing to do with the desert sun. They shared a simple lunch of bread, cheese, and dried beef in the shade of Isaiah's wagon while Hank began work on his repairs. The silence between them felt comfortable rather than awkward, punctuated by observations about the landscape and the cattle business. Isaiah spoke about his plans to expand his herd, about the challenges of ranching in the territory, about his hope to build something lasting. Sophia found herself talking about Philadelphia, about the suffocating expectations and the relief she felt in this wide open country where she could simply be herself. "The men back there must have been fools," Isaiah said suddenly. Sophia looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" "Your aunt mentioned you were unmarried. I assumed the men in Philadelphia lacked the sense to appreciate what they were looking at." Heat flooded Sophia's cheeks, and for once it was not from the sun. They wanted someone different, someone smaller, weaker, more easily managed. Then they were definitely fools. Isaiah held her gaze, his expression serious. "A partner should complement your strengths, not require you to diminish them." Before Sophia could formulate a response to that extraordinary statement, Isaiah stood and brushed dust from his trousers. "We should head back. I want to get this wire unloaded before dark." The ride back to the three-bar ranch took them through country that grew gradually greener as they approached the mountains. Isaiah's property sprawled across a valley where a spring-fed creek provided year-round water. The ranch house was built of adobe and wood, solid and functional, surrounded by corrals and outbuildings. Cattle grazed in fenced pastures, their red hides gleaming in the afternoon sun. Two men emerged from the barn as the wagon rolled up to the main house. One was young, perhaps 19, with sandy hair and an eager expression. The other was older, grizzled and bow-legged from years in the saddle. "Boss, we were not expecting you back until tomorrow," the younger man said. "Change of plans, Danny. This is Miss Ashford. She helped me retrieve the wire from Hank's broken wagon. Miss Ashford, this is Danny Cooper and Jack Russell, my ranch hands." Both men nodded politely, and if they were surprised to see a woman as tall as Isaiah, they hit it well. Jack's weather-beaten face creased in what might have been approval. "Pleased to meet you, miss. Any help is appreciated around here." "Let us get this wire unloaded," Isaiah said. "Danny, Jack, give us a hand." The four of them made quick work of the crates. Sophia noticed that Danny kept glancing at her with barely concealed curiosity, particularly when she lifted her end of the crates with the same ease as the men. Jack simply worked with the methodical efficiency of someone who had spent his life doing manual labor and could not be bothered to comment on it. When the last crate was stacked in the barn, Isaiah pulled several coins from his pocket and held them out to Sophia. $3, as promised. Sophia took the money, very aware of the calluses on Isaiah's palm when their fingers brushed. "Thank you. It was honest work. Would you like to see the ranch before I take you back to town?" The question was casual, but something in Isaiah's eyes made it feel significant. Sophia found herself nodding before she consciously decided to accept. Isaiah showed her around the property, explaining his plans for expansion and improvement. He spoke about cattle breeding and water management, about the difficulties of dealing with rustlers and predators, about his dream of building one of the finest ranches in the territory. Sophia listened, fascinated not just by the information but by the passion in his voice. This was a man who loved his work, who took pride in what he had built with his own hands and determination. "The house needs work," he admitted as they paused on the porch of the main building. "I built it myself 8 years ago, and I was more concerned with sturdy walls than comfort. It is functional but plain. It suits you, Sophia said, and meant it as a compliment. Isaiah looked at her for a long moment. Have supper with me before I take you back to town. It is the least I can do after you spent your day hauling freight. Sophia knew she should decline. Margaret would worry if she stayed away too long. But she found herself accepting, drawn by something in Isaiah that called to parts of herself she had thought she would never share with anyone. The interior of the ranch house was indeed plain, but clean and well organized. Isaiah moved around the kitchen with surprising competence, building up the fire in the stove and pulling out provisions. Sophia offered to help, and they worked together to prepare a meal of fried steaks, beans, and biscuits. The domestic companionship felt natural, as though they had cooked together 100 times before. Over supper, they talked more freely than they had during the day. Isaiah told her about growing up in Texas, about his difficult relationship with his father, about the loneliness of building something alone. Sophia shared more about Philadelphia, about her family's bewilderment over her unwillingness to conform, about her own father's disappointed silence when she announced she was leaving. "You miss him?" Isaiah asked. "I miss the father I wished he could be," Sophia admitted. "The one who might have understood me instead of constantly trying to change me. But I do not miss the disappointment in his eyes every time he looked at me. His disappointment was his failing, not yours." The simple statement, delivered with conviction, made Sophia's throat tighten with unexpected emotion. That is a generous interpretation. It is the truth. Isaiah leaned back in his chair, studying her across the table. "You are exceptional, Sophia Ashford. Any man with sense can see that." The use of her given name sent a small thrill through her. "You barely know me. I know you are strong enough to do a man's work without complaint. I know you are honest and direct in your speech. I know you moved across a country to make a life on your own terms rather than accept one that would diminish you. What more do I need to know? Perhaps that I am terrible at needlework, that I cannot carry a tune, that I read books about animal husbandry and engineering rather than poetry." Isaiah's smile was slow and warm. "I have no use for needlework. I would not ask you to sing, and I would very much like to discuss your thoughts on animal husbandry sometime." Outside, the sun had set while they talked, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. Sophia realized with a start how long she had been away from town. "I need to get back. Aunt Margaret will worry." "Of course." Isaiah stood but made no move toward the door. "Sophia, may I call on you properly? I realize we have only just met, but I would like to know you better." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Yes, I would like that." The ride back to Naco passed too quickly. They talked the entire way, conversations ranging from practical matters to dreams and philosophies. When Isaiah finally pulled the wagon up in front of Margaret's boarding house, Sophia felt reluctant to climb down. "Thank you for your help today," Isaiah said. "And for the company. The pleasure was mine." He helped her down from the wagon, his hands strong and steady at her waist, and for a moment they stood close together in the gathering darkness. Sophia could smell the clean scent of him, soap and leather and something uniquely masculine. Her pulse raced. "I will come to town Saturday," Isaiah said quietly. "If that is acceptable." "Saturday," Sophia agreed. She watched the wagon roll away down the dark street, standing on the sidewalk until the sound of hoofbeats faded into silence. Only then did she turn to find Margaret watching from the doorway with barely suppressed curiosity. "You were gone a very long time," her aunt observed. "We had to travel to the broken freight wagon and back, then unload everything at the ranch." "Of course." Margaret's tone suggested she knew there was more to the story. "And what did you think of Mr. Taylor?" Sophia chose her words carefully. "I think he is unlike any man I have ever met." "That is certainly true. He has a reputation as hard but fair. He keeps to himself mostly, focused on his ranch. I confess I was surprised when he asked for your help today. He usually prefers to handle everything himself." Perhaps he recognized that I was capable of helping him. Margaret smiled knowingly. "Perhaps he did, dear. Perhaps he did." Saturday arrived with agonizing slowness. Sophia threw herself into her work, trying to keep busy enough that she would not spend every moment watching the clock. She baked bread until Margaret laughingly told her they had enough to feed the entire town. She scrubbed floors that were already clean. She reorganized the pantry twice. "You are going to wear yourself out before he even arrives," Margaret said Friday evening, watching Sophia attack the kitchen floor with a brush for the second time that day. "I am simply being productive. You are nervous. It is perfectly natural. He is the first man you have shown interest in since arriving, and from what I could see, the first man who has truly interested you in a long time." Sophia sat back on her heels, brush in hand. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who knows you well, but dear, try to relax. He clearly admires you, or he would not be calling." When Isaiah arrived Saturday afternoon, Sophia was wearing her best dress, a simple affair of blue cotton that matched her eyes. She had brushed her hair until it shone and pinned it up carefully, though she had resisted Margaret's suggestion to add ribbons. She was trying to look presentable, not transform herself into something she was not. Isaiah wore clean clothes and had clearly made an effort, though he looked slightly uncomfortable in what were probably his Sunday best. His face lit up when he saw Sophia, and some of her nervousness melted away. "Miss Ashford," he said formally, because Margaret was watching from the doorway. "I was hoping you might accompany me on a walk." "I would be delighted, Mr. Taylor." They strolled through Naco, past the general store and the saloon, past the small church and the adobe houses that made up most of the town. People watched with interest, and Sophia knew this would be the talk of Naco by sundown. Margaret's tall niece and the solitary rancher, walking together in broad daylight where anyone could see. When they reached the edge of town, Isaiah said, "Would you like to see something special?" "Very much." He led her along a path that wound up into the hills overlooking Naco. The climb was steep, but Sophia's strength made it no challenge, and she noticed Isaiah's approval when she kept pace with him easily. They emerged onto a rocky outcrop that provided a sweeping view of the valley. The town spread below them like a collection of toy buildings, the desert stretching away to distant mountains. "I come here when I need to think," Isaiah said. "Or when the ranch feels too small and I need to remember how much space there is in the world." Sophia turned slowly, taking in the vista. "It is beautiful, all that openness, all that possibility." Yes, but when she looked at him, he was watching her rather than the view. "Sophia, I want to be direct with you. I am not skilled at courtship or pretty words, but I need you to know that I have not been able to stop thinking about you since we met." Her breath caught. "Truly, truly. I am 31 years old and I have never met anyone like you. You are strong and capable and honest. You do not pretend to be something you are not, and you do not apologize for who you are. I find that extraordinary." "Most men find it off-putting," Sophia said quietly. "Then most men are idiots." Isaiah stepped closer, near enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "I want to court you properly, Sophia. I want to spend time with you, learn everything about you, see if this connection I feel is something real and lasting. Would you give me that chance?" Joy and fear warred in Sophia's chest. This was what she had wanted, what she had barely dared hope for. A man who saw her as she was and valued her for it. But the fear came too, born of years of disappointment and rejection. What if I am not what you think I am? She asked. What if you discover I am too much in some way or not enough in others? Isaiah reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against hers, his grip strong but gentle. I am not looking for perfection, Sophia. I am looking for partnership, for someone who can stand beside me as an equal. Someone who will not break under the weight of life out here, and who will not expect me to be something I am not. I think you might be that person. But I want to find out, and I want you to have the chance to decide if I could be that person for you. Sophia looked down at their joined hands, his tanned fingers intertwined with her paler ones, both of them marked by work and strength. Then she looked up at his face, at the hope and honesty she saw there, and made her decision. Yes, she said. Yes, I would like that very much. His smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. Then we will take this slow and do it properly. I will call on you, and we will spend time together, and we will see where this leads. They stood on that hilltop as the afternoon sun slanted golden across the valley, hands clasped, talking about everything and nothing. Isaiah told her more about his ranch, his plans for the future, his hopes of building something that would last beyond his lifetime. Sophia shared her growing love for the territory, her enjoyment of physical work, her relief at finding a place where she could simply be herself without constant judgment. When Isaiah finally walked her back to the boarding house, the sun was setting and Margaret had supper waiting. Isaiah was invited to join them, and he accepted, sitting at the crowded table with Margaret's boarders and eating beef stew while engaging in easy conversation about mining conditions and cattle prices. Sophia watched him interact with the other men, noting how he listened more than he spoke but commanded respect when he did speak. Several of the boarders clearly knew him by reputation and treated him with deference. Over the following weeks, Isaiah became a regular presence in Sophia's life. He came to town twice a week, timing his visits to coincide with supply runs so he could combine business with pleasure. They took long walks together, exploring the countryside around Naco. Isaiah taught Sophia to identify different plants and animal tracks. She shared observations about the geology of the region, pointing out rock formations and theorizing about how the landscape had been shaped by water and wind. Margaret watched their courtship with satisfaction, telling Sophia one evening that she had never seen her niece so happy. "He is a good man," Margaret said as they prepared breakfast one morning. "Hard, yes, and not given to soft words, but honest and dependable. Those qualities will matter more than romance in the long run." "There is romance, too," Sophia admitted, feeling her cheeks warm. "When he looks at me, I feel seen in a way I never have before. Not judged, not found wanting, just seen and valued for exactly who I am. That is the best kind of romance, dear." One Saturday in late September, Isaiah arrived with a specific purpose evident in his manner. Instead of suggesting a walk, he asked if Sophia would accompany him to his ranch for the day. "I want to show you something important," he said, "and I want your opinion on it." Margaret agreed to spare Sophia for the day, and they set off in Isaiah's wagon. The ride was becoming familiar now, the landmarks along the trail as known to Sophia as the streets of Naco. When they arrived at the 3-Bar Ranch, Isaiah helped her down and then surprised her by leading her not to the main house, but to a spot on a slight rise overlooking the property. "What do you see when you look at this place?" he asked. Sophia studied the ranch spread before them. The main house, solid but small. The barn and outbuildings in good repair. The corrals with horses and cattle. The fenced pastures and the creek glinting in the sunlight. "I see something built with care and hard work," she said. "Something that is growing but has room to grow further." Isaiah nodded. "I have been thinking about expansion, I have enough saved now to improve the house, build a larger barn, increase my herd. But all of that is work for a man who has a reason to build for the future rather than just for himself. He turned to face her fully, and Sophia's heart began to race. Sophia, we have been courting for 6 weeks now. I know that is not very long by conventional standards. But I am a man who knows his own mind, and I know what I want. I want a partner to build this ranch with me, someone who will work alongside me, who will share the burdens and the triumphs. Someone strong enough to handle the hardships of ranch life and independent enough to manage things when I am out on the range. I want you, Sophia Ashford, if you will have me. Isaiah, she whispered, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. I am not promising an easy life. Ranching is hard, and there will be lean times along with the good. But I can promise honesty and respect and partnership. I can promise that I will never ask you to be less than you are, and I can promise that I will work every day to be worthy of you. He reached out and took both her hands in his. Will you marry me? Sophia looked at this strong, weathered man who had seen her truly from the first moment they met. She thought of the life he was offering, full of hard work and uncertainty, but also freedom and purpose. She thought of the way her heart raced when he was near, the way their bodies moved in synchronized harmony when they worked together, the way his rare smiles made her feel like she had accomplished something remarkable. Yes, she said, the word coming out fierce and sure. Yes, Isaiah, I will marry you. He pulled her close, and for the first time they kissed. His lips were warm and firm against hers, the kiss both tender and passionate, a promise of partnership and desire combined. Sophia felt as though something locked tight inside her chest suddenly opened, releasing years of tension and fear and loneliness. She was 23 years old, and for the first time in her life, she felt completely and perfectly seen. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isaiah rested his forehead against hers. I will get you a ring in town, he said, and we will do this properly with your aunt's blessing and a church wedding. I do not need a fancy ring, Sophia said, and I do not need a large wedding. But I do need you, Isaiah Taylor. I need this life we are going to build together. They returned to Naco in the late afternoon to share the news with Margaret, who embraced them both and immediately began planning. The boarding house boarders congratulated Isaiah with hearty handshakes and teasing about taming the wild bachelor rancher. Sophia accepted their good wishes with glowing cheeks, hardly able to believe her good fortune. The wedding was set for early November, giving them 6 weeks to prepare. Isaiah made a special trip to Tucson and returned with a simple gold band set with a small but perfect sapphire. Sophia wore it proudly, the weight of it on her finger a constant reminder that her life was about to change in the most wonderful way. During those weeks of preparation, Sophia spent more time at the ranch, learning the daily rhythms of life there. Isaiah taught her to handle cattle, to mend fences, to manage the account books. She proved to have a natural talent for working with horses, and even Jack admitted that she had the best seat of anyone he had seen in years. Danny developed something of a puppy-like devotion to her, clearly thrilled to have another person around who did not mind his constant questions and enthusiasm. You are going to fit right in here, Jack told her one afternoon as they repaired a section of corral fence. The boss has been alone too long. It is good to see him happy. Sophia looked across the yard to where Isaiah was breaking a young horse, his movements fluid and confident. As if feeling her gaze, he looked up and smiled, and warmth flooded through her. I am happy too, she said softly. The wedding took place on a crisp November morning in Naco's small church. Margaret had insisted on at least some traditional elements, and Sophia wore a simple white dress that Margaret had helped her sew. Isaiah wore his best suit, and when Sophia walked down the short aisle to join him, the look on his face made her feel beautiful in a way no mirror ever had. The ceremony was brief and sincere. They exchanged vows in steady voices, promising to honor and cherish each other, to stand together through whatever challenges life brought. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Isaiah kissed her with a tenderness that brought tears to Margaret's eyes and cheers from the assembled guests. The reception was held at the boarding house, with food and drink and music from a fiddle player who lived in town. Sophia danced with her new husband, marveling at how well they moved together, his strength matching hers, neither one leading or following but moving as one unit. When he held her close for a slower song, his breath warm against her ear, he whispered, "Are you ready to go home, Mrs. Taylor?" The name sent a thrill through her. "Yes, yes, I am ready." They left amid a shower of good wishes and rice, climbing into Isaiah's wagon for the familiar ride to the 3-Bar Ranch. But this time, everything was different. This was not a visit. This was Sophia going to her own home, to the life she and Isaiah would build together. The ranch house looked welcoming in the moonlight, and Isaiah carried Sophia over the threshold with ease despite her height and strength. He set her down gently in the main room, where a fire burned cheerfully in the fireplace. "Welcome home, Sophia," he said quietly. She turned to face him, this man who was now her husband, and felt a surge of desire and affection so strong it almost overwhelmed her. "Take me to bed, Isaiah." He needed no further invitation. They came together with passionate intensity, all the attraction and chemistry that had built between them over the past months finally finding full expression. Isaiah's hands were reverent and possessive at once, exploring her tall frame with evident appreciation. Sophia discovered the joy of being with a man who truly matched her, whose strength complemented rather than competed with her own. They learned each other's bodies with eagerness and care, and when they finally joined together, it felt like the most natural and right thing in the world. Afterward, they lay tangled together in Isaiah's bed, which was now their bed, and Sophia felt complete in a way she had never imagined possible. "I love you," she said into the darkness. "I do not think I have said that yet, but I do. I love you, Isaiah." His arms tightened around her. "I love you too, Sophia. From that first day when you lifted those crates without complaint, I think I started falling for you. By the time we stood on that hilltop overlooking the valley, I knew I never wanted to let you go. You will not have to. I am yours and you are mine, and this is where I belong." The first months of marriage were an adjustment but a joyful one. Sophia threw herself into ranch life with enthusiasm, rising before dawn to help with morning chores, working alongside Isaiah and the ranch hands through the day. She discovered she had a talent for training horses, a patience and firmness that the animals responded to well. Isaiah, watching her gentle a particularly skittish mare, told her she should take over that aspect of the ranch entirely. "You are better at it than I am," he admitted without rancor. "And it frees me up for other work. We make a good team." They did make a good team. Where Isaiah was sometimes impatient, Sophia was steady. Where she could be overly cautious, he pushed for bold action. They balanced each other, challenged each other, supported each other. The ranch prospered under their joint management. That first winter was hard, with storms that tested the fences and scattered the herd. Sophia and Isaiah spent long days in the saddle, rounding up strayed cattle, breaking ice on water troughs, hauling feed to animals that could not forage through the snow. But they faced it together, and somehow that made even the hardest days bearable. Coming home to a warm house, to hot food and shared conversation, to falling into bed exhausted but together made all the difference. By spring, Sophia realized she was pregnant. She told Isaiah one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, his arm around her shoulders. "I am going to have a baby," she said simply. Isaiah went very still. Then he turned to her, his face a mixture of joy and concern. "Are you certain?" "Quite certain. I have missed 2 courses now, and I am sick every morning. Margaret recognized the signs when I went to visit her last week." "How do you feel about it?" he asked carefully. Sophia considered the question. She felt excitement, certainly, and some nervousness about the unknowns ahead, but underneath it all was a deep sense of rightness. "I feel happy. I feel ready. We are building something here, Isaiah, and a child is part of that." He pulled her close, his hand splaying protectively across her still flat stomach. "You are the strongest person I know, Sophia Taylor. If anyone can handle childbirth and motherhood while running a ranch, it is you. But I need you to promise you will not take foolish risks, that you will let me and the hands take on more of the heavy work." "I promise to be sensible," she said. "But I will not become an invalid just because I am carrying a child. Women have been having babies while working for all of human history. I know, but those women were not my wife. Those babies were not mine." The tenderness in his voice made her eyes sting with happy tears. "I promise," she said again, more seriously, "I will be careful. But I will not stop being who I am. I would never ask you to." Sophia worked through her pregnancy with typical determination, adjusting her activities as her body changed, but remaining active and involved in the ranch operations. She stopped riding the more difficult horses and left the heaviest work to others, but she continued training horses, managing accounts, and helping with daily chores. Isaiah hovered initially, but gradually relaxed as he saw that Sophia knew her own limits and respected them. Margaret visited frequently, bringing supplies and advice and occasionally scolding Sophia for doing too much. But even Margaret had to admit that pregnancy seemed to agree with her niece. Sophia bloomed with health, her cheeks rosy and her eyes bright. Their son was born on a warm night in early October, after a labor that was long and difficult but ultimately successful. Isaiah held Sophia's hand through all of it, his face pale but his presence steady. When the midwife finally placed their son in Sophia's arms, both of them wept. "Isaac," Sophia said, looking down at the tiny face. "Isaac Taylor. Do you like it?" "I love it," Isaiah said hoarsely. "He is perfect. You are perfect. I cannot believe how lucky I am." Isaac proved to be a sturdy baby with a healthy appetite and powerful lungs. Sophia recovered quickly from the birth, and within weeks she was back to her normal routine, though now with a baby strapped to her back in a carrier that Danny had made. Isaac seemed to enjoy being carried around the ranch, watching everything with alert dark eyes that reminded Sophia of his father. The years that followed were full and demanding but deeply satisfying. The ranch continued to grow. Isaiah added new pastures and expanded the herd. Sophia's horse training business developed a strong reputation, with ranchers from across the territory bringing their difficult animals to the 3-Bar Ranch. Together, they weathered droughts and market downturns, rustlers and predators, all the challenges that came with ranch life. When Isaac was 3, Sophia gave birth to twin daughters, Sarah and Rose. The house suddenly felt much smaller and louder, but Isaiah responded by building an addition, creating more bedrooms and a larger kitchen. The twins were miniature versions of Sophia, both tall for their age and showing signs of inheriting their mother's strength. Isaac doted on his little sisters, playing the protective older brother with endearing seriousness. 2 years after the twins came Samuel, and then 3 years later, Anna. The ranch house rang with children's laughter and the organized chaos of a large family. Isaiah proved to be a devoted father, patient and playful with the children but firm when necessary. Sophia managed motherhood the way she managed everything, with practical efficiency and deep love. Through it all, the bond between Sophia and Isaiah only deepened. They fell into bed exhausted most nights, but they always found time to talk, to share the day's challenges and triumphs, to simply be together. On special occasions, they would leave the children with Jack's wife, who they had hired to help with the household, and ride out to their hilltop, to the place where Isaiah had proposed. There they would sit and talk and remember who they were beyond parents and ranchers, remember the two people who had met over crates of barbed wire and fallen in love. "Do you ever regret leaving Philadelphia?" Isaiah asked during one such visit, when they had been married for 12 years. Sophia, now 35 and more beautiful to him than ever, laughed. "Not for a single moment. That life would have crushed me eventually. This life, hard as it is sometimes, lets me be fully myself. How could I regret that? And you are happy, truly happy." She took his hand, her grip still strong and sure. "I am happier than I ever imagined possible. I have work that matters, children I love, and a partner who sees me as I am. What more could anyone want?" Isaiah pulled her close, kissing her with the passion that had never dimmed between them. "I fell in love with you the moment you lifted that first crate without complaint. I fall in love with you again every day." Pretty words from a man who claims not to have them. You inspire them. They made love there on that hilltop, with the whole valley spread below them and the sky vast overhead. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something extraordinary together. As the children grew, they each developed distinct personalities. Isaac was steady and reliable like his father, taking naturally to ranch work and showing early promise as a cattleman. Sarah had her mother's love of horses and spent every free moment in the corrals. Rose proved to have a head for numbers and began helping Sophia with the account books when she was only 8. Samuel was the dreamer of the family, always reading when he should have been working, though he never shirked his responsibilities. Anna, the baby, was fearless and stubborn, determined to keep up with her older siblings no matter what. Sophia looked at her children one evening, gathered around the dinner table arguing cheerfully about whose turn it was to do dishes, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. These children would never know the suffocation she had felt growing up, the sense that who she was naturally was somehow wrong. They were growing up in a home where strength was valued, where hard work was expected from everyone regardless of gender, where partnership and respect were modeled every day. "What are you thinking about?" Isaiah asked, catching her expression. "How lucky our children are," she said, "to grow up here like this." He understood immediately, as he always did. They are lucky to have you as their mother. You have given them the freedom to be whoever they are meant to be. "We have given them that," she corrected. "You have never treated our daughters as if they were less capable than our sons. Because they are not. Sarah can outride most men I know, and Rose has a sharper mind for business than I will ever have. Why would I limit them?" It was that attitude, that fundamental respect and equality, that had made Sophia fall in love with Isaiah in the first place. It was what made their marriage work, what made their family strong. The years continued to pass. The children grew and began to pursue their own paths. Isaac stayed on the ranch, taking over more and more of the daily operations as Isaiah's hair turned gray and his joints began to protest the hard physical labor. Sarah married a neighboring rancher and started breeding horses on her own property, though she visited frequently. Rose moved to Tucson to work in a bank, her mathematical skills and sharp business sense making her invaluable. Samuel went east to study literature, sending long letters home full of his adventures. Anna, true to her nature, decided to become a veterinarian, apprenticing with the traveling doctor who served the ranches of the territory. Through all the changes and challenges, Sophia and Isaiah remained each other's constants. They were partners in every sense, working together, raising their family together, growing old together. Isaiah's dark hair turned silver, and Sophia's blonde acquired threads of white, but they remained strong and capable, still taking morning rides together, still sitting on the porch in the evening to watch the sunset. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch for a celebration. The house that had once seemed too small was now bursting at the seams with family. Isaac and his wife had 3 children of their own. Sarah had 2, and Rose had recently had her first. Even Samuel, who had married a woman he met in Boston, had returned for the occasion with his young son. Margaret, now in her 80s but still sharp and energetic, made the trip from Naco for the celebration. She embraced Sophia with tears in her eyes. "Look at what you have built," she said, gesturing at the gathering family, the prosperous ranch, the life that Sophia and Isaiah had created. "I am so proud of you, dear girl." "I could not have done it without you," Sophia said. "You gave me a place to land when I needed it most. You believed I could find my own path. I simply saw what you were capable of. You did all the hard work yourself." That evening, as the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold, Isaiah raised a glass to toast his wife. 25 years ago, I met a woman who changed my life," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the crowded room. "She was strong and capable, and unlike anyone I had ever known. I was lucky enough that she agreed to take a chance on a rough rancher who had nothing but land and dreams to offer her. Together, we built this ranch, raised these children, created this family. Sophia, you are my partner, my love, my equal in all things. Here is to 25 more years." The room erupted in cheers and applause. Sophia, her eyes shining with happy tears, stood and kissed her husband soundly to the delight of their assembled family. "To 25 more years," she agreed. "And to the life we built together, the one I never dared dream of having." Later, after the guests had departed and the house had quieted, Sophia and Isaiah sat together on their porch as they had done countless times over the past quarter century. The night was clear and cool, stars blazing overhead in the vast desert sky. "You remember the day we met?" Sophia asked, leaning against Isaiah's solid shoulder. "I remember a woman stepping off a stagecoach and lifting a trunk that should have required 2 men. I remember thinking that I had never seen anyone quite like her. I remember a man who looked at me and saw possibility instead of a problem to be solved, who asked for my help instead of treating me like something decorative or delicate." Isaiah turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "You were never meant to be decorative or delicate, Sophia. You were meant to be exactly what you are, strong, capable, extraordinary. I saw that from the beginning, and every day since has only confirmed it." She kissed him, this man who had loved her for exactly who she was, who had built a life with her that honored both their strengths. "I love you, Isaiah Taylor, today, tomorrow, and for all the days that follow. And I love you, Sophia Taylor, always and forever." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel slowly overhead. 2 people who had found each other in the vast wilderness of the Arizona territory and created something beautiful and lasting. The ranch stretched around them, a testament to their partnership and hard work. Their children and grandchildren carried forward the values they had instilled, the belief that strength and capability were gifts to be celebrated rather than hidden. In the years that followed, They slowed down gradually, passing more responsibilities to Isaac and his wife. But they remained active and engaged, still riding out to their special hilltop, still working together on projects around the ranch, still finding joy in each other's company. Their marriage had weathered every storm, grown deeper and richer with each passing year. When Sophia turned 55, Isaiah threw her a party that rivaled their anniversary celebration. Friends and family came from across the territory, everyone who had known and respected this unusual woman who had come west as a stranger and become a pillar of the community. People told stories about her strength, her kindness, her skill with horses, her sharp business sense. Throughout it all, Isaiah stood beside her, his pride evident in every glance. "She is still the most remarkable person I know," he told Jack, who had remained with the ranch for all these years. "Still surprises me, still challenges me, still makes me grateful every day that she chose me." Jack, now ancient and weathered, smiled. "You both chose each other, boss. That is what made it work. You saw each other clearly from the start and decided you would build something together. Not many couples manage that." It was true. Their partnership had been built on honesty and mutual respect, on appreciation for each other's strengths rather than resentment of them. They had worked together, raised children together, built an empire together, and through it all, never lost sight of the two people who had met over crates of barbed wire and recognized their match. The years continued their steady march. More grandchildren arrived, and then great-grandchildren. The ranch prospered under Isaac's management, incorporating new techniques and technologies while maintaining the core values his parents had established. Sophia and Isaiah became the beloved patriarch and matriarch of a sprawling family. Their wisdom sought on everything from business decisions to relationship troubles. On their 40th wedding anniversary, when Sophia was 63 and Isaiah 67, their entire family gathered once more at the ranch. The house had been expanded several more times over the years to accommodate everyone. 4 generations now sat around the dinner table, sharing food and laughter and stories. Isaiah stood to make another toast, his voice still strong despite his years. 40 years ago, I asked this woman to marry me. I promised her an honest life, hard work, and partnership. She gave me all that and so much more. She gave me children and grandchildren. She gave me a home and a purpose. Most importantly, she gave me herself, completely and without reservation. Sophia, you are the love of my life, my partner in all things, my greatest adventure. I would do it all again in a heartbeat." Sophia rose to stand beside him, tall and still strong despite the silver in her hair. "Isaiah Taylor, you saw me when I was invisible to others. You valued me when I was dismissed. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You gave me the freedom to be myself and the partnership I did not dare dream of. These 40 years have been the best of my life, and I look forward to however many more we are granted." They kissed, and their assembled family cheered, and in that moment, surrounded by the evidence of everything they had built together, both of them felt completely and perfectly content. The seasons continued to turn. Sophia and Isaiah grew older but remained inseparable, still taking gentle rides together, still sitting on their porch in the evening, still finding comfort and joy in each other's presence. When Isaiah's health began to fail in his 73rd year, Sophia nursed him with the same determined strength she had brought to every other challenge in her life. "You have to fight," she told him fiercely, holding his hand in the bed they had shared for over 4 decades. "I am not ready to let you go yet." Isaiah smiled, the expression tender despite his weakness. "Sophia, my love, I have fought hard my whole life. I built a ranch from nothing, raised children, loved you with everything I had. If it is my time, I will go knowing I lived fully and well. But I need you, she whispered, tears streaming down her weathered face. We are a team. We always have been. We will always be a team, even when I am gone. I am in everything we built together, in every fence post and every building, in our children and their children. You carry me with you always. He lingered for another week, surrounded by family, before passing peacefully one morning just as the sun rose over the ranch. Sophia sat beside him, holding his hand, her heart breaking even as she recognized the peace on his face. The grief was enormous, a wave that threatened to drown her. For weeks, Sophia moved through the days mechanically, performing tasks out of habit rather than will. The ranch felt empty without Isaiah's presence, even though it remained full of family. Nothing was quite right, quite whole. But gradually, as winter turned to spring, Sophia found her way back to herself. She began riding again, visiting the hilltop where Isaiah had proposed, talking to him as if he could hear her. She threw herself into working with the horses, finding solace in the nonverbal communication and trust required. She spent time with her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, seeing Isaiah's influence in all of them, the values he had instilled, the love he had shared. He would want you to keep living, Margaret told her during one of their visits. Margaret was now 94 and frail, but her mind remained sharp. He would want you to continue enjoying the life you built together. I know, Sophia said, and I am trying, but everything reminds me of him. Every corner of this ranch, every sunset, every small moment. That is because you built it together as partners. But Sophia, you were extraordinary before you met him, and you remain extraordinary now. Honor his memory by continuing to be fully yourself. It was the advice Sophia needed. She began truly living again rather than just existing. She took up painting, capturing the landscapes she loved in watercolors. She wrote down stories of the ranch's history, of her and Isaiah's journey together, creating a record for future generations. She mentored young women in the territory who struggled with societal expectations, offering them the same acceptance and encouragement she had found. Sophia lived another 15 years after Isaiah's death, remaining active and engaged until the end. She died peacefully at the age of 83, surrounded by family in the house she and Isaiah had built together. Her last words were, "Tell your father I am coming home." She was buried beside Isaiah on the hilltop overlooking the ranch, the place where he had proposed, where they had come throughout their marriage to remember who they were together. Their graves became a family landmark, a place of pilgrimage for descendants who came to pay respects to the remarkable couple who had started it all. The ranch continued to prosper, passed down through generations, each one adding their own chapter to the story while honoring the foundation that Sophia and Isaiah had laid. The main house was preserved as it had been during their time, a museum of sorts, though it remained part of the working ranch. Visitors came from across the country to see the place where this legendary partnership had flourished, to hear the story of the woman who had been too tall and strong for delicate suitors, and the rugged rancher who had finally been her match. But the true legacy was not in the property or the buildings or even the stories. It was in the values that permeated the family and the community they had helped build. The belief that strength was something to be celebrated, that partnership meant equality and mutual respect, that love meant accepting someone completely rather than trying to change them. Those lessons echoed through time, influencing not just the Taylor family but everyone who heard their story. Years later, when the ranch celebrated its 100th anniversary, the celebration included not just family but people from across the territory and beyond. They came to honor the memory of Sophia and Isaiah Taylor, two remarkable people who had found each other against all odds and built something that lasted far beyond their own lifetimes. A great-great-granddaughter, herself tall and strong and proudly so, stood before the assembled crowd and told the story of how it all began. She spoke of a woman stepping off a stagecoach, of a man who needed help with barbed wire, of two people who recognized in each other exactly what they needed. She spoke of partnership and equality, of love that was built on respect and honesty, of a life built together through hard work and determination. They showed us that being true to yourself is never wrong, she said. That the right person will love you not despite who you are, but because of it. That partnership means building something together, stronger than either could create alone. These are the lessons Sophia and Isaiah Taylor left us, and we carry them forward. The crowd raised their glasses in a toast to the couple who had started it all, to the woman who had been too tall and strong for delicate suitors, and the rugged rancher who had finally been her match. Their story had become legend, but the heart of it remained simple and true. Two people who had seen each other clearly, loved each other completely, and built a life together that honored them both. On the hilltop overlooking the ranch, their graves stood side by side, marked with simple headstones that bore their names, their dates, and a single line: partners in all things forever. And in the evening, when the sun set over the valley they had loved, painting the sky in brilliant colors, it was easy to imagine their spirits there still, sitting together as they had done in life, watching over the family and the ranch they had built, satisfied with what they had created and grateful for every moment they had shared. Their love story had been unconventional by the standards of their time, but it had been real and deep and lasting. They had found each other in the Wild West of 1882, two people who might have seemed mismatched to the conventional world but who fit together perfectly. They had built a ranch, raised a family, created a legacy that continued to inspire generations after they were gone. In the end, that was the true measure of their love, not just in what they had accomplished together, but in how they had empowered each other to be fully themselves, in how they had created a partnership that honored both their strengths, in how their love had rippled outward to touch countless lives beyond their own. The woman who had been too tall and strong for delicate suitors had found her match in the rugged rancher, and together they had proven that the right kind of love does not ask you to be smaller or weaker or less than you are. The right kind of love sees you completely and chooses you anyway, celebrates you, stands beside you as an equal partner in building a life that honors you both. That was the legacy of Sophia and Isaiah Taylor, and it endured long after they were gone, a testament to the power of acceptance, respect, and partnership, to the extraordinary things that become possible when two people meet each other as equals and choose to build something beautiful together.